Welcome to Family History Mysteries, a podcast that tells the stories uncovered through family history research, the unexpected stories of everyday people. I am an avid family historian who has been compiling my family tree for over 15 years, with nearly 20,000 people recorded in my trees.
Episode 84, Leonard Strom. Leonard Johansson Strom was born on the 1st of December 1850 at Gothenburg, Sweden. His parents were Johannes Nilsson and Britta Andersdotter, and he had one brother, Nils, and 6 sisters. The family lived in Langskrud at the farm called Skattegarden. In 1866, Leonard moves away from home. So Leonard arrived in Melbourne on the Regina from Yokohama, Japan in 1866. Then he returns home to his family in 1867. In 1869, Leonard gets a work permit to work in Norway, and then Leonard moved to America on the 1st of March 1872. There was a record of Leonard Johansson recorded at Orlando, 4th of April 1873, stating he was from Sweden and he was going to Hull, England. And the next record I find of Leonard is on the Liverpool ship crew in 1874. Certificates of endorsements were made by consuls or by officers in British possessions abroad, and it certifies that a vessel arrived in Melbourne on the 23rd of December 1874 and that the consul or officer has sanctioned the engagement of L. Johansson. So he'd certainly done a lot of travelling across the globe before arriving in Australia. He married Mary Cashin in Malden, Victoria, in a Catholic ceremony on the 22nd of April 1879, when Leonard was 28 and Mary 21. Mary was a dressmaker and Leonard listed himself as a seaman at the time of their marriage. Mary Cashin was the daughter of Patrick Cashin and Dorothy Mullenby. Her parents were Irish and they had both emigrated to Hobart, Tasmania. They married in Hobart in March 1855, and in 1856 they moved to Castlemaine, Victoria. Patrick Cashin was a miner and they lived primarily at Eaglehawk Gully near Malden. Leonard and Mary Cashin had 9 children with 7 surviving childhood, and they lived in Echuca East, Mitchell Street, Echuca, and in 1912 owned a farm at Cayuga. The paddle steamer Elizabeth was captained by Leonard Strom on the Murray River from 1879, and it travelled to and from Echuca for the Macintosh sawmill. On the 26th of November 1885, there was a mention of the Elizabeth steamer with the master Strom arriving in Echuca. It came from Gumbower with full loads of sawn timber and sleepers. 7 months later, on the 22nd of July 1886, the steamer Elizabeth, Captain Strom, with the barge Premier, arrived yesterday from Gumbower with a large load of railway timber. A month later, 7th of August 1886, the steamer Elizabeth arrived with Captain Strom from Gumbower with the barge Premier laden with timber for the Melbourne Harbour Trust. A year later, Leonard Strom was listed as being one of the families that were flooded out at Echuca East. And in November 1887, in Echuca, Captain Leonard Strom of the steamer Elizabeth reported to police at 6 o'clock this morning that while passing the Maloga on the Murray, a barge hand named Peter Williamson, whilst going from one barge to another, had stepped into a dinghy which capsized with him, throwing him into the river. The steamer was stopped and a search made, but the man could not be seen. Williamson was a foreigner, about 21 years of age, and had only been in the colony for 2 years. In June 1888, the steamer Elizabeth. Sometime since we referred to the improvements in the superstructure of the steamer Julia, owned by James Macintosh Sawmill Company. The steamer Elizabeth, also belonging to the same firm, has been similarly overhauled under the supervision of Mr. Macintosh and is entirely new above the hull. The hurricane deck has been raised to a height of 8 foot 9 inches above the hull of the steamer, and the deck extended over the afterhold and brought flush over the paddle wheels, giving much more accommodation. The cabins have been reconstructed and are larger and more roomy. The supports of the hurricane deck are light and strong, there being in addition to side uprights. 3 arches over the machinery of 2-inch piping, which gives this portion of the vessel a roomy and neat appearance. At the rear of the boiler and engines, a circular cast iron tow post supported on the bridge is fixed up, and abaft, this is the gallery, which has just been completed. The paddle boxes are built squarely, but instead of being covered on the outside with sheet iron, as in the case with the steamer Julia, they are covered with T&G pine. Under the command of Captain L. Strom, the Elizabeth made a trial trip yesterday with the vessel to be found in capital working order. So from this time on, it was known as Elizabeth II. Leonard Strom was naturalised in Echuca on the 28th of January 1889. He was 49 years of age, and he stated he was born at Gothenburg, Sweden, and he was a master mariner. At the end of 1889, a buggy accident was reported in the paper. On Boxing Day, Captain Strom and a party of friends, having procured a horse and trap from Cleland and Little, proceeded over Stewart's Bridge in the direction of the Murray for the purpose of enjoying a picnic. On arriving at their destination, preparations were in place for their convivialities. Captain Strom, without giving due thought to the result, took the winkers off the horse, when at once it began to move off and bolted. He stuck to the head of the animal as long as he could, but eventually fell, receiving some slight damage to his face. The horse continued its mad career until its trap came in contact with a stump, when it was reduced into matchwood. The horse was uninjured. Leonard Strom doesn't appear in the Echuca papers after around 1892, and it is possible that there are links to a Louis Strom that's reported in 1893 at Coolgardie. And I found an article on the 1st of December 1893. It says, word from Coolgardie. A former river captain, Louis Strom, and William Burke, formerly connected with the local rangers, have written from Coolgardie stating they have struck payable gold at a place called Kew. They encountered many difficulties before striking payable gold. And there's no mention of Leonard Strom until 2 years later, and he's back on the river. On the 17th of November 1894, at Goolwa, the steamer Enterprise, Captain Strom with 214 bales, Glen Boyd and 225 Tolano, all for shipment at Port Victor for London. And 3 days later, the steamer Enterprise, Captain Strom, arrived at Port Elliot on Friday with 439 bales for the port. This steamer is owned by the Echuca firm T.H. Freeman. Mr. Freeman has the Enterprise running at this port with various brands of wool. And 2 days later, on the 24th of November 1894, about 1 o'clock yesterday morning, a fire broke out in a house near Mackintosh's Mills, Echuca East, the property of Mr. Leonard Strom, a river captain. The brigade turned out promptly, but the pressure of water was very weak, and the flames had such a hold on the premises that nothing could be done to save the place. Mrs. Strom and her family were asleep at the time, and some difficulty was experienced in getting one of the children out of the burning building. The house and the contents were entirely destroyed. Captain Strom is away from home, and as we know, 2 days prior it was in the paper that he was at Port Elliot loading wool. A month later, in December 1894 at Echuca, the steamer Enterprise, Captain Strom, has arrived, the first from the Darling, with 200 bales of wool. And 10 days later, the steamer Enterprise, Captain Strom, took a large cargo of merchandise yesterday and will probably sail today for the Darling. There's nothing till 4 years later, and it states that at the port of Echuca, the Little Wonder with L. Strom as master, for Yarrawonga with another consignment of red gum for redecking the bridge at Yarrawonga. So he's changed boats again. And on the 16th of March 1899, allotment 38E, parish of Echuca North, 20 acres, L.J. Strom, applicant, being successful. On the 2nd of September 1899, he's now back on the Elizabeth. So the port of Echuca, the Elizabeth steamer, L. Strom master, from the Goulburn River with 1,000 hewn sleepers. And 2 years later, Port of Echuca, the Elizabeth steamer with Strom as the master, came upstream with a cargo of sawn red gum timber. And 4 days later, Elizabeth steamer with Strom the master from Pecola with 50 tonne of sawn red gum timber. And the next day, on the Elizabeth, he has a barge with him heading for Pecola. And then 4 years later, he's mentioned as the captain of the steamer Alert, and he has general merchandise and machinery that is leaving Echuca. And then on the 24th of January 1912, Leonard Strom sells. So for sale, a comfortable 5-roomed weatherboard house situated in Bynon Street, Echuca East. all the pieces of land being allotments 20 and 21 of Section T, Township of Echuca, a 5-roomed weatherboard home with bathroom, small kitchen and 2 detached sheds. This property is at present occupied by Mr. Shivers and is worthy of inspection for anyone requiring a comfortable little home in Echuca East. Mr. Strom has left the town and therefore he is a genuine and absolute seller. Leonard Strom died on the 29th of December 1936 at Echuca Hospital, aged 86, and Mary died in 1940 in Tongala, aged 83. And the death of Leonard was mentioned in the paper. Strom, at the District Hospital, Leonard J. Strom of 37 Mitchell Street, Echuca East, beloved husband of Mary. And for Mary, on the 9th of September at Tongala Memorial Hospital, Mary Strom, widow of the late Leonard Strom, fond mother of Margaret, Elma, Oscar, Ida, Dora and Agnes. So their children. The firstborn was Matilda Dora Strom, and she was born in Echuca in 1880 and died aged 7 in 1888 in Echuca. The second child, Margaret Emma Strong, was born in Echuca on the 5th of November 1881. She was living in Bendigo from 1919, and she married Charles Grigg Truscott in 1929. Charles had previously been married to Sarah Taff in 1902, and they had 5 children, 4 whom survived infancy. Charles owned an orchard at Emu Creek, and they together had no children, and Margaret died in November 1960 in Preston, Victoria. Leonard Francis Strom was born on the 13th of January 1884 at Echuca, and at the age of 16, on the 24th of March 1900, there was a presentation made to Master Leonard Strom, who has been employed as a messenger at the local telegraph office for the past 2 years and who has been transferred to a position in the Kew Asylum, was made a recipient of a presentation from his fellow employees in Echuca on Wednesday evening. Mr. James Lawrence, the postmaster, occupied the chair and on behalf of the staff presented Master Strom with a very nice gold breast pin as a memento from his brother officials, the members of the staff, one and all, expressing best wishes for his future welfare. Leonard was working as a civil servant in Carlton at the Stamp Office in 1909 and 1910, and he married Honora Carol Dornham on the 10th of May 1912 in Echuca when they were both 28. They had 7 children, and in 1914 Leonard Strom is listed as an inspector of factories, and he was based at Castlemaine, but they also had a home in Hawthorn. On the 27th of March 1915, it's mentioned Mr. L.F. Strom, Inspector under the Factories Act, is at present on a visit of inspection to Echuca and will return to Castlemaine today. In 1917, they moved to Bendigo, where Leonard Strom became an auctioneer and an estate insurance and shipping agent based in William Street, Bendigo. He was an agent for P&O, S&N, Royal Mail Liners and also the P&O branch service. And it says, consult me early regarding fares, exchange, sailings, passports. On the 6th of June 1932, it says, many business and sporting men attended the funeral in Bendigo today of Leonard F. Strom, estate agent and auctioneer and secretary of the Bendigo Trotting Club, the Morong Racing Club and the Bendigo St Patrick's Day Sports. On Saturday afternoon, Mr. Strom was completing the arrangements for the Bendigo Trotting Club meeting this afternoon, and on reaching his home worked in his garden. After chopping wood, he collapsed. Mr. Strom, before entering into business about 5 years ago, was an inspector under the Factories and Shops Act. And another article says the death occurred suddenly on Saturday night of Mr. Leonard F. Strom. He was only 48 years and a native of Echuca. He is survived by a widow and 7 children. The 4th child, Elma Teresa, was born on the 1st of March 1886 in Echuca. She was a dressmaker and moved to Carlton when she was 28. She married Samuel Terence Dornham in 1917 in Victoria when she was 31 and Samuel 35. They had 5 children. Samuel was a bricklayer and a rubber worker. Samuel died in 1933 when their youngest child was only 11. Elma died on the 25th of November 1960 in Fitzroy, Victoria, aged 74. The 5th child, Oscar Paul Strom, was born on the 23rd of September 1888 at Echuca. He married Eileen Margaret Matthews in Redfern, New South Wales on the 26th of September 1915, when Oscar was 27 and Eileen 20. He was a postal sorter and they lived at St Peter's, Redfern and Mortdale. They had 3 children and Oscar died at Mortdale on the 1st of April 1855, aged 66. Their 6th child, Irene Mary, died at only 7 weeks old in 1880, possibly of diphtheria. Their 7th child, Ida Elizabeth, was born on the 4th of July 1892 in Echuca. She was a seamstress and lived in Carlton when she was 22 and then lived at Newmarket until her marriage to Harold Norman Wolfe in 1920 when she was 28 and Norman 21. They lived in Rochester, Harold's hometown, where they had 8 children. Harold died of leukaemia, aged only 48, in March 1948, and Ida died in Swan Hill on the 24th of May 1972, aged 79. The 8th child, Dora Ann Strom, was born in Echuca on the 18th of October 1895. She married John Duncan Atlee in Tongala in May 1916 when she was 20 and John 27. There was an article outlining their wedding. Atlee Strom. A very pretty wedding was celebrated at St Patrick's Roman Catholic Church, Tongala, on Wednesday last. The contracting parties being Dora, the younger daughter of Mr. and Mrs. L. Strom of Cayuga, and Mr. John Atlee, son of Mr. and Mrs. W. Atlee of Mooroopna, formerly of Cayuga. The bride, who was given away by her father, had bridesmaids, Elma and Agnes Strom, sisters of the bride, and Leonard Strom of Castlemaine, the brother of the bride, was best man. They lived at Riddle, near Gisborne, Victoria in 1919, and by 1924 they were living at Nagambie, where John was working as a contractor. John returned to work on the family farm at Tongala in 1926. In 1954 they moved to Taturata Farm. They had 8 children, and Dora died at Tatura on the 16th of February 1962, aged 66. 2 of their sons are actually connected to my family. Their son Bill was married to my great-great-aunt, Mary Higgins, and another son, Tom, was married to my grandfather's cousin, Margaret Moore. The 9th child, Agnes Grace, was born on the 4th of May 1899 in Echuca. Agnes was living in Balaclava, Victoria in 1921. She was living with Henry and Phoebe Marks. Henry Marks was an importer. Agnes married Albert Edward Anthony at St Mary's Church in Echuca on the 22nd of August 1922 when they were 23. Albert was a blacksmith and a labourer who also fought in World War I. They lived in Seymour in 1924 and by 1931 they were living in Fitzroy and 1963 were living at East Brunswick. Albert had a permanent disability from the army. They had 3 children and Agnes died on the 7th of May 1981, aged 82. So Leonard Strom certainly had an interesting life. By the sounds of it, he struck it rich over in Western Australia and also managed to see quite a bit of the world before he settled down and had his own family.
If you are interested in sharing your story on my podcast Family History Mysteries, please go to my Facebook page and send me a message. If you would like some assistance in filling in the gaps in your family tree to see what mysteries you solve, please get in touch. And don't forget you can have early access to episodes by subscribing, and you'll also gain access to bonus episodes.